Hello and welcome to another episode of Father and Joe. I am Joe Rocky here with Father Boniface. And Father, as we've discussed many times, I have a 3-year-old about to be a 4-year-old. And I had an experience as a result of being with him that is from the Bible. It's one of the things that liturgically is read every year. And I also think by the very nature of what it is, where it is in the season, it's also overlooked every year. And what I was doing with my son was basically playing with a hose. We were supposed to be washing the car, but you give a 3-year-old a hose and basically you just end up with mud pits everywhere and everything's all wet. That's life. So by the end of it, mud's everywhere, all over me. And I go in and take a shower to get the mud off. And basically, the process of cleaning my own feet here made me think about when Jesus does that for the apostles. And it's literally an action that all of us can do. In their society, it was the lowest statured people did. So an act of the absolute most minimum wage, whatever the equivalent equation of that is today, but the least statusable people doing. And obviously we talk about this is part of the Good Thursday or Holy Thursday readings, which naturally gets overshadowed by Good Friday, and then even the creation of the Eucharist and the priesthood, which happens later on in the same Mass. And I wanted to spend a moment thinking about that. We spent the last episode not reaffirming, but discussing about how your litany showed the power and the divinity of Jesus in my mind. And this being an action that Jesus takes of already showing that you don't need special divine powers to be able to serve people. Yes, I'm going to give those to you later. That's when I consecrate the Eucharist upstairs. But you can take care of each other regardless of who you are. You don't need to have a prerequisite to be faithful, to listen to me, to do as I'm commanding, to be able to enter the pathway into heaven. And that action, again, of him wiping all the feet, of cleaning everyone's feet, rather, is simultaneously immensely powerful. And it's also socially such a just position to have the person that you've been following, building up, and basically treating as your leader and king, acting as though he is the lowest on the totem pole. And I can certainly understand St. Peter's reaction of being uncomfortable about it. And I wanted to just spotlight that moment of the Bible because it dawned on me. And again, I fully acknowledge that I could be wrong in some of my assessments here, but these were the thoughts that were coming to me. And it was a very powerful and encouraging thought that came to me, and I wanted to share it with the audience.
Yeah, I think the washing of the feet on Holy Thursday is a powerful moment that illustrates a lot of different things and is certainly worth spending some time reflecting on. Jesus, as you said, does something that was normally reserved for slaves, and that evokes a bit of Peter's proud reaction, not wanting himself to be served by his master. And yet Jesus was teaching Peter precisely that the way of leading in Christianity is not through dominating and controlling, but rather through serving, even taking up the posture of a slave towards another in order to demonstrate the primacy of love and the greatness of every person. And so those who are invested with power and authority in Christianity are not those who control, but rather those who serve, not those who dominate, but rather those who serve. And so that example is critical. It really turns everything on its head. And We don't see too many companies with the CEO washing the feet of his employees, even too many families, although they start out that way. Parents wash the feet of their children all the time, but eventually come to a place of demanding respect and not wanting to carry out that humbling task. So there's something physical and concrete about washing feet, but then washing feet also symbolizes something greater, a humble service rather than a controlling domination or posture over somebody. The Gentiles lord it over them, but among you it will not be so. He who is greatest among you will be least and the servant of all, Jesus said. And so the apostles had to learn that. They learned that from the Master himself. And they learned that at the most critical moment, because ultimately, not only did Jesus wash their feet, he washed with his hands in water, he washed their souls with his blood poured out on the cross. And that feet washing took place at the Last Supper, which is why it's included on Holy Thursday, and why also the Eucharist and the priesthood and the inception of those two great sacraments is also part of that same liturgy on Holy Thursday. All of those things go together, and in some sense, Holy Thursday contains the whole rest of the weekend. Good Friday and Easter Sunday are contained in Holy Thursday. It already expresses the whole Paschal Mystery. The suffering, death, and resurrection of Christ is made present at the Last Supper as Jesus takes bread and says, "Take this, all of you, and eat of it, for this is my body." He takes a chalice of wine and says, "Take this, all of you, and drink of it, for this is the chalice of my blood." And the separation of blood and wine the separation of body and blood is the symbol of death. When our blood is separated from our body, that's when we're dead. And so his death is contained in the symbol of that separation. At the same time, it's a living bread and a living blood, living chalice. And so we have the resurrection also there. So the whole Paschal Mystery is contained in the Last Supper. And that's the ultimate way that Jesus serves us, not just washing our feet, which is a matter of removing dirt from the body, but rather washing our souls. And he does that by his blood. What does that mean? He doesn't literally wipe his blood on us, but his blood is the symbol of the extent of his love. The greatness of his love is expressed in the shedding of his blood, none of it held back, and shedding his blood to the point of his death. Total self-gift, total self-offering, nothing held back for himself. And so it's that love, as we talked about in our last episode, that heals our hearts. Jesus, heal my heart with your love. That love is expressed most fully on the cross. That love is captured in the symbol of blood, and that blood is used to wash, to heal, to cleanse our hearts. The word for healing and the word for salvation, cleansing, is all the same word in Latin and Greek. And so Jesus heals our hearts, cleanses our hearts with his blood, like he washes our feet with water and the service of his love. And so all of those things go very much together, and they give us the example of what brings the ultimate purpose to our own lives. We are called at the same Last Supper. In fact, in the very passage on Holy Thursday, "A new commandment I give you, love one another as I love you." And that very same servile love, serving through washing feet as a concrete action in this life, but even to the point of shedding our blood for our brothers and sisters, that we would give our whole life for others as Jesus did for us, is part of God's command, a command which he not only expects of us, but also empowers us to carry out, something that we just couldn't do by our own power. But with the help of Jesus, united with him, loved by him first, we are able to carry out that command of love and pour out our lives for one another. So, yeah, there's a lot in that symbol of foot washing. I'll maybe mention just one more thing while I'm on a roll here. So Jesus also says, when Peter protests, well, if I have to be washed, then my face and my hands as well. And Jesus says, no, you're already washed, but now you need to be, I forget exactly, your feet need to be washed, or you will have no inheritance with me. And so it's been interpreted that the foot washing is comparable to confession. So we've been washed in baptism already, our whole body, you could say, immersed in what? Not just water, but really Jesus, love, God, the Trinity. We are immersed in him, transformed by him. We are covered, clothed with him. But we still sin. We still fall short. We still get stained, no longer our whole body, but just our feet. And our feet need to be continually washed, again, as a kind of symbol of the sacrament of confession. So a lot in that foot washing.
That is, and that's an angle in which I had never thought of that before in terms of the connection to confession, because even in modern times, and again, there's some very concrete times when the Bible hits upon human nature. A lot of the times in the Bible, we just don't always look at it. But even in modern times, when you think about those types of situations where someone's taking care of you from a vanity standpoint, a couple of thoughts came to my mind here: is haircuts, the old school people cleaning the tops of your shoes. What normally happens? People end up talking to each other and ignoring the person who's helping them. And during those conversations, a lot of times you're talking about things that are gossipy in nature, which can lead to the destruction of relationships and therefore sin. So it would seem that there is a logical pathway. Not saying that we haven't changed the tradition in 2,000 years or anything like that. I'm sure we have. But that notion of letting your guard down while you're being taken care of, whether it be a manicure or anything else along those lines, they're all in the same core function of, cleaning yourself, making yourself look better, or whatever the case might be. For those of you who have pictures of me, you can tell I don't get a lot of haircuts, but the notion of it still remains the same. And I think that's an incredibly telling thought, that I'd never put that connection of confession there at the same time. Oftentimes when I was taught about confession, it's after the resurrection, when Jesus gives the church the Holy Spirit and says, whatever sins you retain, whichever you forgive are forgiven, which I guess is the divine power of it. But that thought of you have to do this is powerful. There also is a little bit of, this is the rules and the expectations of the relationship. You just kind of have to do it. I mean, there's some things that they are what they are, which gets into one of the other points you were saying there. Love each other as I have loved you. And growing up, as you do with children, it's implied that that's always being nice, cuddly, warm, and happy. But as we look at adults and look at the relationship Jesus had with others, there is a calling to be better. There are moments of destruction that we have discussed before. He flips all the coin counters. People are breaking each other's houses to get closer to him. So that there are. It's not all, rainbows and nice clouds. There is moments of this relationship is going to take effort, pain, blood, and tears sometimes, but it's incredibly worth it if you help each other and do it along the way. And I think that is something that my adult version of myself and the child version of learning the faith, I think, can get a disconnect for not learning that bridge and make the relationship with Jesus not complete, for lack of a better way of saying that. So I know I took a couple of different thoughts there, and I see your face like you're kind of wrong. So I want to give you a chance to respond there.
No, I think the need to continue going deeper in our faith and continue to uh, apply the saving power of Jesus to our lives, His healing power to our lives, is in some way obviously necessary, because He doesn't do things to us. He does things with our permission. He's always engaging our freedom. He's not simply imposing Himself. And so, as we grow in healing and freedom through grace, living out our Christian lives, we stumble across places in our lives that continue to need His help. And then, with our own free choice, we ask Him to help us, to free us, to save us, to wash us. So I suppose you could think it, to take it back to the foot analogy, we keep walking, and as we make our journey to our heavenly homeland, our feet necessarily get dirty because we don't walk through only clean places. The very effort to live the Christian life is kind of necessary, and I suppose in the now I have to deviate from the analogy a bit, but it's not as if our feet were already perfectly clean at the start, but the repeated maybe getting them dirtier actually by His cleansing makes them cleaner than they were before. And so there's a steady deepening of the healing, cleansing power of Jesus as we walk out our faith, fail in various ways, and then are happy recipients of His mercy and His redeeming love. And so that's the way that we keep making our way forward in this journey of faith, following Jesus, who is the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, as it says in the letter to the Hebrews.
Yeah, it's something that is remarkable. I mean, if you think about it, there's something you said in there that I think gets lost on a lot of people. I know it certainly has been lost upon me before. And Jesus says this outright in the Bible as well, is that your faith is required for this to work. I'm not doing this to you. So even those that are possessed, take the most extreme form of sin, it is still their faith that has Jesus work His miracle through them. You know, we see multiple times that say your faith has healed you. You know, he is not doing things to us; He's doing it with us, and our faith and belief in Him is a big part of that. So, Father, I want to give you a chance to conclude this episode and give us some thoughts to move forward in the week with.
Well, I think it's a good concluding note just to think about the way that Jesus has cleansed us as an expression of His love. There is nothing more healing and freeing and cleansing than love. And we are the privileged recipients of the love of Jesus, who makes us His brothers, who shares our humanity, who suffers with us and remains with us through everything. And so we can really enter more deeply into that. That would be my invitation for you today. Enter more deeply into the loving gaze of Jesus today.
Perfect. And we thank you all very much for being with us here today. And we will be with you again next week.